Well, hello everyone, it's Ren here. I hope you're doing great, my friends. As you can see, I'm not at home. In fact, this is a kind of loud environment, so I hope that you'll still be able to hear me. I'm outside an airport, picking up my grandmother. I'm in Nice, so if you love Nice, I guess the place agrees with you. I just wanted to share more thoughts on this question of, yesterday I was talking about how the obsession with consuming online content and social media is not good for INFJs long term. It's not good for what I like to call their soul health or their soul equilibrium. The soul, as in the word soul here, In fact, the word soul here as well. So, that I've written this book, The Infinite Soul. You can find the link below if you INFJ Life in the Modern World, how INFJs can find purpose and meaning in the world today. Get the new book, which is the sequel to this book, The Ecstatic Soul, which is more an in-depth analysis of INFJ existence based on the psychology of INFJs. But what I meant to say is, don't forget one thing, which is that the way the world is going to be a particular way. And this can be a way that suits INFJs or a way that does not suit INFJs. But what's important to keep in mind is that what suits INFJs might not be what suits other types. We're not necessarily in a win-win scenario here. And this might be something that's difficult to hear. It might be something that people don't immediately think about, but this is true. And I think, funnily enough, the best analogy for it might be the class analogy. I don't know if it would be the best analogy, but it would be an analogy that works relatively well. Is that, when you have patterns of voting, so you vote for a particular candidate. If you're in a democracy, or in a quasi-democracy, or in a democratic regime, you get to vote. So you get to vote for a particular candidate. Often we tend to assume that if we really like a candidate, that candidate is going to be good for the country as a whole, or good for everybody, if we really believe in that candidate. But in reality, if we look more closely at patterns of voting, there's often a class element to it. You vote for the candidate that best defends the policies of your particular social class or of your particular cultural category, right? Or if your pattern of voting is according to, your ethnic background, which is often not ideal, but more of a right-wing kind of vote, that's what you're going to do. So there's a link between who you vote for, the kind of regime you want for your nation, and your class, or your ethnic background, or your cultural capital, or whatever. Well, the fact of the matter is, there's an analogy here with the kind of world we want for INFJs, which might not be the same kind of world that we want for, if we're ENTPs or ENFPs or ESTPs or something like that. And in a way, the best way to capture this idea is that when you are like a strong extroverted perceiver, like an ENFP or an ENTP or an ESFP or something, maybe the world of like social media, rapid consumption of material, moving quickly from one topic to the next, a frantic and a manic experience or reality, maybe that's what stimulates you. Maybe that's what you need, right? And the more slow-paced absorption of content, like in the case of the INFJ, where you need to sit down, read books, find that stability of world experience that is good for your soul ultimately, and for the meaning that you find in life, and really ultimately for the particular kind of mind that you possess, that might not be for everybody. So does that mean that in the same way that for Marxists there is class war, there should be type war? Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily, because that's when we can bring in the idea of a liberal state or a liberal polity, where there can be living and dwelling next to each other people who have different priorities and different tastes, and somehow that makes for a society that can work together. So there are people who are religious, there are people who are not religious, there are people who are interested in going to the movies a lot, and people who are not, people who are interested in going to museums, people who are not, people who like sports. Well, INFJs should cultivate this, again, This is a concept from this book, which I call the Islands of Spirits. Islands of Spirits are, the concept of it is the idea that you need to cultivate your own garden, your own circle of friends and activities that has a slow pace, at least a pace that's much slower compared to the hyper fast pace of contemporary society, particularly among young people, and our media, our social media, just promoting this constant refresh button, you know, like every 15 seconds. Anything that promotes that, you should, I'm not saying that you should ban that from your life, but you should certainly make it only a small part of your everyday experience and cultivate a much slower pace of life. That's not good necessarily for all the types. I'm saying that's good for INFJs, okay? So that's my, those are my observations for today. Don't think that's what good for you is necessarily good for someone else. That's true for class, that's true for your cultural capital, that's true potentially for some people for their ethnic identity, but it's certainly true of your type as well. What's good for extroverted perceivers, what's good for strong extroverted judgers, and maybe these people dominate politics and they have a discourse that suggests that it's universally good for everyone because they're the ones at the top of the ladder in politics. In fact, that's not necessarily true at all. Always think in terms of what your islands of spirit should be as an INFJ for your soul nourishment. Okay, I think it's time to pick up my granny knife. So again, don't forget about my book, my new book out, links are below. My Patreon page, I got 2 new patrons recently, thank you so much. It always helps, the link is below. I will see you on Wednesday, guys. Take care, bye-bye.